A blinding flash lit up the skies over Russia's Kursk region. A fiery trail split the morning air. Seconds later, one of Russia's most advanced fighter jets, the SU-35, was spiraling down in flames. It slammed into the earth, leaving behind nothing but smoke, debris, and silence. Moments later, Ukrainian telegram channels erupted with triumph. Across social media, headlines screamed, "Ukrainian F-16 shoots down Russian Su-35 over Kursk." Major English and European news outlets echoed the claim. The story went global. The Ukrainian F-16 had just pulled off the impossible, taking out a Russian air superiority fighter inside its own airspace. But behind the headlines was something far more complex. The official statement from Ukraine's Air Force did confirm the destruction of a Su-35 near Kursk, but notably omitted any mention of an air-to-air kill. No F-16s. No dogfight. No aerial combat at all. That silence should have raised red flags. If there was no aerial engagement, then what really happened? Let's rewind the clock. 6:45 a.m. that morning. A Russian pilot was completing his pre-flight checks at an airbase in the country's western region. His aircraft, a top-of-the-line Su-35, armed and ready. Two AL-31 engines roared to life, shaking the ground. The cockpit hummed as radar systems, targeting computers, and electronic warfare tools came online. The Su-35 taxied to the runway, lifted off, and climbed to 16 kilometers above the earth. Its mission: to patrol the Russian-Ukrainian border near Koronovo, protecting ground units and intercepting any Ukrainian aircraft. This was not an ordinary jet. The Su-35 is a crown jewel of Russia's 4++ generation fighters, equipped with phased array radar capable of tracking up to 30 targets at once, thrust vectoring engines for extreme maneuverability, and an electronic countermeasure suite designed to defeat modern missiles. But none of that mattered on this day. Because what brought this plane down wasn't another jet. It was something far more sophisticated, far more invisible, and far more lethal. At that time, Ukraine operated fewer than 10 active F-16s, and even those were newly delivered. Ukrainian pilots were still transitioning from decades of experience on Soviet-era MiG-29s and Su-27s to Western combat philosophy. It wasn't just about flying new jets. It was about rewiring their entire approach to warfare. NATO doctrine emphasizes network-centric warfare, long-range engagements, real-time data sharing, and battlefield coordination across air, land, and space. But for Ukraine, this integration was still in its infancy. Logistics, maintenance crews, pilot training, all of it was still being scaled up. And worse, by June 2025, Ukraine had already lost 3 F-16s. One went down in August the previous year, another in April, and the third just weeks before the Kursk incident. That's a 30% loss rate in under a year, a catastrophic figure for such an expensive, limited fleet. So logically, Ukraine would never risk deploying its rare F-16s deep into Russian territory. These jets were needed elsewhere, protecting the south, the east, and shielding Ukrainian infrastructure from missile strikes. Sending them beyond the front lines would be suicidal, a one-way mission. So if it wasn't an F-16, then what took down the Su-35? The Russian pilot certainly wasn't relaxed. He knew exactly what to fear: Ukrainian air defense systems. With every month of war, Ukraine had pushed its anti-aircraft batteries closer and closer to the border. Some of them, in fact, had gained the capability to strike deep into Russian airspace. At that very moment, high above central Ukraine, a Swedish Saab 348 WNC, airborne early warning and control, aircraft was scanning the skies. Its PS-890 radar system could monitor targets across a 450-kilometer radius, acting as a flying command center. But there was a catch. For the Saab to coordinate directly with Ukrainian F-16s in real time, it needed the NATO standard Link 16 data link, a digital backbone allowing instant battlefield communication. But under U.S. pressure, those systems were deliberately removed from Ukraine's F-16s before delivery. Why? Because Washington feared losing the sensitive technology if a plane were shot down or captured. That meant even if the Saab detected the Su-35, it couldn't digitally share targeting data. Communication was limited to voice, too slow, too imprecise, and nearly useless during a high-speed intercept. 7:13 a.m. The Russian pilot receives an urgent warning. His threat detection system lights up. He's being targeted. Within seconds, he begins evasive maneuvers. Flares are launched, radar jammers activated, decoys deployed. Everything goes by the book. Then it happens. Just 26 seconds later, a missile launch alert. This wasn't a bluff. This wasn't a radar lock. This was an active kill signal. And this missile wasn't relying on ground-based guidance. It had its own brain, an active radar seeker. Once launched, it didn't need external support. It could see its target and chase it relentlessly. The SU-35 went full defensive. The pilot pulled a split-S maneuver, dropped flares, and rolled hard. But it was useless. The missile ignored the heat signatures. It was tracking the reflected radar signal, locked in with deadly precision. Experts now believe it was likely a PAC-3 interceptor, part of the U.S.-built Patriot missile system. The PAC-3 is designed to strike high-speed aerial targets, reaching altitudes up to 22 kilometers and speeds over Mach 5. In other words, it was built to kill jets like the SU-35. And that's exactly what it did. The proximity fuse detonated near the fuselage. The aircraft was engulfed in flames. The pilot ejected just in time, blasted out of the cockpit under 20 gs of force. As he floated beneath his parachute, he watched his $85 million warplane become a burning heap of scrap metal. He didn't know what hit him. There had been no dogfight, no warning shot, no enemy jet in sight. This was a ground-based ambush, precise, invisible, and utterly devastating. Ukraine's military issued only a brief statement. Target eliminated during operations near Kursk. No further details. Why? Because this wasn't just warfare. It was psychological warfare. Why didn't Ukraine gloat? Why no footage, no bold claims, no fighter pilot interviews? Because silence was a strategy. Let Russian pilots lie awake at night wondering, was it a jet? Was it a stealth drone? Was it a Patriot battery hidden just across the border? Let paranoia do the work. Modern warfare isn't just about firepower. It's about confusion, uncertainty, and fear. And in this case, Ukraine executed a textbook information operation. This wasn't a lucky shot. It was a network kill, a product of layered defense. Satellites, radar arrays, Western technology, early warning aircraft, and high-precision interceptors working as one cohesive system. No pilot, no visual contact, just data, coordination, and execution. The future of war doesn't require seeing your enemy. It doesn't even require crossing the border. The SU-35 didn't fall because it lost a dogfight. It fell because it was blind in a digital battlefield. And in this new era of war, the one who sees first and reacts fastest wins. What happened over Kursk wasn't just a tactical victory. It was a demonstration of a new doctrine, a war fought not by individual heroes, but by invisible hands connected through a mesh of sensors, satellites, and silent systems. This is a battlefield of tomorrow, and for some, it's already here. So the question now is, who's really in control of the skies?